All right, let's dive into the EU's AI Act. This isn't just another piece of regulation, it's the world's very first comprehensive rulebook for artificial intelligence. And make no mistake, its goal is to set the standard not just for Europe, but for the entire globe. That really is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, AI is moving at lightning speed, and the EU has basically raised its hand and said, somebody's got to write the rules. So this entire act, everything we're about to talk about, is an attempt to solve this fundamental problem. How do you foster innovation while also protecting people from potential harm?
So, first up, let's talk about the grand ambition behind this whole thing.
At its heart, the idea is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. The EU wants to create one single unified market where every AI system you interact with is safe, transparent, and respects our fundamental rights. It's all about building trust so that people and businesses across all 27 member states can actually feel confident using and adopting AI. Now, this isn't all happening at once. The act is being rolled out in phases. It officially went into force in August 2024, but the first really big milestone is February 2025. That's when the bans on the most dangerous types of AI kick in. But the really heavy-duty obligations, the ones for what they call high-risk systems, those won't fully be in place until 2026 and even 2027. So there's a bit of a runway for everyone to adapt.
Okay, so how is the EU possibly going to regulate, well, everything AI? The short answer is they're not. And that brings us to the absolute core concept of this law, the AI risk pyramid. The whole thing is built on this one idea. Down at the very bottom, making up the vast majority of all AI out there, you've got minimal risk. Think about your email spam filter or the AI characters in a video game. The great news here is these are basically left alone. The EU is effectively saying, go for it, innovate, you're fine. No new rules to worry about here. Take one step up the pyramid, and we get to limited risk. The key word for this level is transparency. It's pretty straightforward. If you're talking to a chatbot or you're looking at a deepfake image, the system has to clearly tell you that you're interacting with AI. The whole point is just to make sure people aren't being deceived. Simple, right? But totally crucial. And now we get to the part of the pyramid where the AI Act really shows its teeth, the high-risk category. This is the main event. We're talking about AI that could have a serious impact on your life, on your safety, things like the AI in self-driving cars, in medical equipment, or the systems that screen your job application or your kid's university admission. These things, they face a mountain of strict rules before they're ever allowed on the market. And believe me, this high-risk category is incredibly broad. I mean, it covers everything from AI that manages our power grids and water supply, all the way to systems that decide your credit score or help judges evaluate evidence in a court case. The potential impact here is just massive. Then, at the very, very top of the pyramid, you have unacceptable risk. These are the AI practices that the EU has decided are just so threatening to our rights and our values that they are flat-out banned. We're talking about things like government-run social scoring systems, AI that exploits the vulnerabilities of children, or using emotion-reading tech in the workplace. These are the EU's ethical red lines. No crossing them. Okay, that pyramid makes sense. But what about the elephant in the room? When this law was first being drafted, models like ChatGPT, they barely even existed. Now they're everywhere. So the EU had to scramble and add a whole new chapter just to deal with them. So they came up with this special category called General Purpose AI, or GPA for short. These are those huge, powerful foundation models that can do almost anything, write code, create art, answer questions, and because they're the building blocks for countless other AI tools, they get their own special set of rules. So under the Act, every single one of these big models, no matter how big or small, has to follow some basic transparency rules. They have to publish summaries of the data they were trained on, and, this is a big one, they have to have a clear policy to comply with EU copyright law. But then, for the absolute biggest of the big, there's another level. Any model that's trained using more than 10 to the 25th power of floating point operations, and that is a truly mind-boggling amount of computing power, is considered to pose a systemic risk. These titans of the AI world face the toughest rules of all, including things like mandatory red teaming, adversarial testing, and reporting any serious problems to the new EU AI office. So we know what the law says, but what does this actually mean in the real world for real companies? Well, that brings us to the business battleground, because this regulation has kicked off a fierce, high-stakes fight for businesses of all sizes. This quote from the source material just says it all, doesn't it? For a lot of small companies and startups, the reaction to the AI Act wasn't celebration, it was pure anxiety. The thought of trying to navigate all these complex, expensive new rules is genuinely terrifying for them. And what that's created is a really uneven playing field. On one side, you've got small and medium-sized businesses just getting crushed by a resource squeeze and what they call paralyzing ambiguity over which rules even apply to them. And on the other side, you've got the big tech giants who can afford armies of lawyers, who can lobby for changes, and who can even turn compliance itself into a product they sell to everyone else. And you can already see these strategies playing out. Microsoft, for instance, is building compliance tools right into its Azure cloud platform. Apple is going a different route. They're just delaying some of their new Apple Intelligence features in the EU, blaming the law's uncertainty. Meanwhile, Meta is lobbying like crazy for exemptions for its open source models, and Google's pushing back hard against having to share data. So why is everyone so focused on this? Well, the stakes are absolutely astronomical. The fines for getting this wrong are massive. We're talking up to 35 million euros, or 7% of a company's global annual turnover, whichever is higher. In some cases, that's even more than the GDPR fines we've all heard so much about. And all of this brings us to our final section, an uncertain future. Because just when you think the rules are about to be set in stone, the story takes another unexpected twist. So, thanks to some intense lobbying and a lot of concern about how this is all going to work, the European Commission has just proposed something called the Digital Omnibus Package. The official goal is to simplify and streamline the AI Act before it even really gets going. And the changes they're proposing are pretty significant. They're talking about delaying the main rules for high-risk AI until late 2027, dropping a rule that required companies to provide AI literacy training, and making it easier to use certain kinds of data for training models. It's a pretty clear move to ease the burden on the industry. But, and this is a big but, this has triggered a major backlash. Dozens of civil society groups are up in arms, arguing that these last-minute changes are just watering down the whole act, that they're getting rid of crucial protections for people, and that it's all just caving to the demands of big tech. The fight over what this law will finally look like is definitely not over. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. Is the EU AI Act this brilliant, pioneering law that's going to create a global gold standard for trustworthy AI? Or is it a complicated, slow-moving rulebook that's already out of date, trying to catch up to a technology that evolves not just year by year, but month by month? Only time is going to tell.